first batch of beer right around 1970, 69 or 70. My record keeping back then wasn't so great, so I can't remember if it was 69 or 70, but right around then. And I made it using Pabst Blue Ribbon malt, and excuse me, Blue Ribbon malt. It wasn't associated with Pabst at the time. But many breweries actually resorted to making malt extract during Prohibition. So malt, as I talked about, it's the soaking and sprouting and germinating of the barley, and this creates enzymes in the grain which break the starches down in the barley, or in the case of the wheat beers, of wheat. And those starches then can be turned into a sort of liquid starch or sugar, and the enzymes turn the starch into sugar. Sugar is what we brew our beer with. And so a malt extract like this is what is sort of the base of beer that's been condensed down into a syrup. The Blue Ribbon was never a great quality syrup, and it was one of the things I say a lot of breweries did during Prohibition to survive. So they would make malt extract syrups, and they would market them in all sorts of ways, such as making bread out of it. But in reality, I think most of the times they sold this, people would take it home and add a little bit extra sugar and some yeast, and they turn it into beer back during Prohibition. But there were some cookbooks about how to use malt extract, and they'd say the breweries were trying to find any way to survive through Prohibition. Here's Rainier Brewery. Some of you may have heard of that brewery up in Seattle. They made malt extract, and or you run down, this will build you up. So they could probably build you up more after it was fermented. But for those tired, nervous conditions, causes sleepless nights. That's their. But anyway, I started out home brewing around 1970. I had a neighbor who was my best buddy's father, and when I was growing up basically from elementary school, he was a very avid home brewer and home winemaker, and was always brewing something in his kitchen. So as I grew up, I saw these 5-gallon jugs lining his service porch, and he was always boiling something on the stove, and these very interesting aromas and flavors. And we would sneak a little bit of his beer out every once in a while. And finally he said, you better make some of this yourself. You can't steal my beer anymore. So I went off and bought some malt extract and a 5-gallon carboy and whatever else I needed. You can buy all the ingredients to make beer, even if you weren't 21. Actually, before that, though, I started out as a winemaker. So this was my first recipe for wine. Using Welch's grape juice, and I had a gallon jug in my closet, and my mother kept wondering what was smelling so bad in there, and she just assumed it was because I was a teenage boy. But my first batch of beer was something almost as crude, which was using that Pabst Blue Ribbon. So it really didn't turn out very well. And most homebrew back in those days was not brewed for quality, and there was very little information available on how to make good homebrew. It was really done for a cheap buzz and sort of a carryover from Prohibition, where lots of sugar and yeast and a little bit of malt, and you could make a fairly potent beer to drink. It wasn't until this guy came out with really the first American book on how to make homebrew and do it from a quality standpoint rather than from an inexpensive standpoint. And I'll talk a little bit about Fred Eckhart shortly, but I think we'll go ahead and enjoy this course, and I'll get back up here in a few minutes and continue the story.